If we turn our backs and spit in his face, is God still gonna bless the USA?
Imagine a small New England town in the late 19th century. Children carve hollowed-out pumpkins, light them with candles, and place them by the windows. To an observer, it may be a simple harvest fun, but at the deeper level, the jack-o'-lantern's root comes from the ancient belief that the veil between the living and the dead grows thin at this time of year. What began as a respectful remembrance of mortality has become a night when fear is cheapened, symbols are hollowed, and darkness quietly walks in. Greetings, Patriots. I'm Perry Green, and this is God in America, where faith and freedom fearlessly unite. I hadn't planned to do a specific Halloween lesson, but something possessed me, and I felt compelled. Well, let's go back even further. The holiday we call Halloween has its origins in the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. The Celts marked November 1st as their new year, marking the beginning of the darker half of the year. On the evening before October 1st, they believed the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead was blurred. Bonfires were lit, costumes were worn, and offerings were made to spirits. Over time, Christian observance aimed to repurpose this day. November 1st became All Saints' Day or All Hallows' Day, and the evening before was called All Hallows' Eve, eventually known as Halloween. The carved pumpkins trace their roots to these pagan origins. Originally, turnips or beets were carved to ward off wandering spirits. In America, pumpkins replaced them because they were more plentiful and easier to carve. Some believed that the pagans sacrificed babies, decapitated them, and placed their heads on their porches to ward off the demonic. Eventually, they ceased their child sacrifices and used pumpkins to trick the spirits. In early America, many colonial leaders discouraged Halloween, seeing it as rooted in superstition and paganism. But by the 19th century, Scot-Irish immigrants brought Samhain customs, which blended into American culture and shifted toward secular fun, costumes, and trick-or-treating. Add to that the early American literary era. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving became America's first ghost story, rooted in America's Dutch and English communities, steeped in superstition, fear, and the supernatural. The Headless Horseman, Ichabod Crane, the Spectral Chase, all these became cultural fixtures tied to the Halloween season. So what began as a solemn day of remembrance and holy boundary recognition transformed into a night of costumes, candy, shadows, and the occult. In the Bible, we're warned about darkness, deception, and the ways deceit can harm the heart. Ephesians 5 verse 11 says, "And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them." And in 1 Peter 5 verse 8, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour." When we allow fear and darkness to become entertainment, we lower our guard. When the symbols of darkness are normalized, the spiritual boundary erodes. What once reminded people of mortality and God becomes a nightly invitation to trivialize and dabble in the forbidden. Leviticus 19:31 reads, "Do not turn to mediums or necromancers. Do not seek them out, and so make yourselves unclean by them. I am the Lord your God." Today, Halloween is seen mainly as harmless fun, costumes, candy, parties. But what we often miss is how the holiday has desensitized us to fear and the occult. Symbols like the jack-o'-lanterns, skeletons, witches, ghosts, once warnings or reminders of spiritual realities, are now trivialized or commercialized. The demons don't care if we wear a costume sincerely or as a joke. What matters is the boundary we cross when we treat darkness as amusement and blur reverence for God with indulgence and vice. It's a spiritual battle between light and darkness. In our culture, fear has been commodified and the occult glamorized. This is not just innocent fun, it is a battle of symbols. When we invite symbol-driven fear rather than faith-driven hope, we gradually allow darkness to creep in. The challenge for believers and patriots is to reclaim the holy within the profane, to remember that when freedom is tied to faith, we don't allow cultural currents to drag us away. We need to assess our family's traditions. Are they amplifying light or shadows? We need to teach our children not to revel in costumes and candy, but to recognize the spiritual realities behind the symbols. We need to choose intentionally the seasonal celebrations that affirm life, hope, and resurrection, not cheapening of fear or the trivializing of death. When our church, our family, and our culture treat Halloween as just harmless fun, we relinquish an opportunity to bring God's truth into a broken world. Patriots, just like the pilgrims in our founding generation, recognize that union of faith and freedom. We must acknowledge that spiritual vigilance is more critical than political vigilance. So instead of sleepwalking through a night of shadows, let your home be a light. Let your celebration point people upward to God who conquered death and darkness. Let your children hear that the power of the cross is greater than the Power Ranger costume. Resurrection is stronger than the night's fright. Well, thanks for being with us today. Please like, share, follow, and subscribe to our podcast. Until next time, let's keep the light of faith and freedom burning.